Welcome to the next edition of the Hillbilly Files. It's good to be back out here again. I've been off for about a week. Now, the day that we went out, the one place that we stopped for a quick second, Heather manages to catch the flu from someone. So we've been down for a little while. This story here is one that's been in the pipe now for about 2 weeks. They're 3 or 4 days, you know, to go take a story from concept to filmed to actually a video ready to upload. It takes several days. This one right here was in the pipe for about 2 weeks. This one's a complicated story, and it's an amazing piece of history that I will guarantee almost none of you have ever heard of. I mentioned in a comment that I was getting ready to come up here and do this on our YouTube page. I mentioned that there's probably less than a dozen people on earth who actually know this story. Now, today we are in Pikeville, Kentucky at the Pike Central High School. That's it right there. I'm on the parking lot. It's a Saturday. I didn't want to come over on a day they're having school, so I waited till a Saturday and came over. They got the gate locked, so I parked outside the gate over there and just kind of staked out a spot, you know, middle of the parking lot, not too close to the school, but not too close to the highway either. I want y'all to be able to actually hear me. Now, exactly what could an ultra-modern consolidated high school possibly have to do with history? The truth is, absolutely nothing. This school has nothing to do with the reason that we're here today. The ground underneath it is what we're here for today. That's the historic part, right? You see, this site right here, this very spot where we're standing right now, this is the site of the old Pike County Poor Farm. Now, like I said, most people don't even know that these things even existed in America, you know? Everyone's seen the old Ebenezer Scrooge, where he tells, you know, the guys collecting for charity, "Are there no more workhouses?" So everyone knows this was a European thing, but not so many people know that it was actually done in America as well. Now, hang on, let's let him get by. Gearing down the hill. The Pike County Poor Farm, it had several names over many years. They called it the County Infirmary, the County Asylum, the County Poor Asylum, or just the Poor House to the locals. But they all did basically the same thing. By the early 1920s, when there were actually enough people in the area, you know, for the poor to actually be an issue, right? The county decided to form a board to oversee these people and decide what to do about it, right? At first, they hired local families. They hired them to more or less do what we would call boarding, you know, today. They were farmed out to the lowest responsible bidder, as the old news articles of the day say, right? They were called overseers of the poor. Now, different families and individuals, you know, in the community, they took in poor homeless people and sometimes even whole families, and they'd let them live with them. The county commissioners paid those people for taking in poor homeless folks. Now, they did that until the 1850s, when an 80-acre piece of land was purchased for $600 to be used as the county poor farm by the county commissioners. They operated the poor farm for a while before local taxpayers decided that it was just way too expensive to actually operate the thing. So they closed it down, and that left all the homeless people, the poor people, in need again. But once again, they were farmed out to the lowest responsible bidder, and the land was sold by the county commissioners for $800. Now, eventually, the county commissioners, they were able to come up with what was called a working poor farm. the Poor Farm officially became an institution. In 1866, the commissioners bought the land that you're looking at, where Pike County Central High School sits right now. That piece of land that we're standing on. They paid $4,698.59 for this property. Okay, for the entire thing. It goes all the way down through there. You can see buildings that way, and it goes back behind that mountain. There's another great big flat area that heads back out that way behind this mountain. So it's a really, really big place, is my point. Poor people living at the farm, the ones who were able to work, you know, they helped farm the land and work in the garden, which supplied most of the food and the other necessities they needed. They let out bids to trade for other things like coal, bedding, and other items that the farm wasn't able to produce on its own. Now what they would do is they would either trade some of their stuff, the excess stuff that they had, or sometimes if they had, say you've got a house, you want to build a house, and you need some people, right? You know how you go down to the Home Depot and, you know, hire people hanging out outside the Home Depot? Sort of like that, sort of like an unemployment office. What you do is you contact the county overseer of the poor, and you would tell him what you were doing, that you wanted to build a house. You and he would sit down and you'd iron out the details. Now, we'll trade you, we'll give you 6 bushels of coal, 2 bushels of beans, so on and so on and so on. I need 6 guys to come down for about a week. Okay, you got a deal. And so that's how they do it. And it was, the whole place was sort of a microcosm of the world around it. You see, this place right here, this is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you can see there's just woods, mountains, trees, all the way around. And this place was chosen specifically, you know, it's off to itself. You know, it's middle of nowhere, right? People who were able to work, you know, they did. And, you know, help provide the place with what it needed. During the time that the Poor Farm was in operation, the county commissioners would visit the place, visit the facility once a month, and they would have dinner with what they called the inmates. Okay? The first inmate at this facility, when it was opened in 1866, was a 15-year-old boy named Peter R. Fair. It says that he was crippled and partially paralyzed. He lived at the Poor Farm his entire life and died here in 1924. Okay. By 1870, the census listed inmates from 4 years old to 70 years old. In the 1880 census, there was a total of 36 people listed as living here at the Poor Farm. Of those 36 people, 6 would die that year. In 1885, the main building was destroyed by a fire that was started by one of the inmates, a man named John Tisdale. Now, Tisdale, he had been locked in a cell on the first floor. They had cells too, you know. It was also Poor Farms. Most people don't know this, but they were also infirmaries. A lot of places combined their Poor Farms with hospitals, that sort of thing, you know. And you could, since the county paid for both, it just made sense to have both right there in the same spot. So that's why they had to sell, because they had people sometimes who had some serious mental problems, and they were just put in right among, you know, the normal people who just happened to be down on their luck or whatever and wound up homeless through no fault of their own, that sort of thing. But they were put in, well, with the crazy people, you know. Let's just say it like it was. Tisdale, like I said, they had him locked in a cell on the first floor near the kitchen. He was said to be wild and dangerous, right? Now, you think about that. You're living in this place with this dude right? Through no fault of your own. You know, you're just homeless. You know, something happened. Who knows, your husband died or whatever the case may be. And, you know, you fell on hard times. You wind up in the poorhouse, and Tisdale is there. Tisdale, he gets in the cell, and he pulls all the straw from his mattress, and he starts a fire inside the cell. Now, as soon as they realize, you know, that Tisdale has started a fire, the alarm goes off. Everybody goes crazy, right? Unfortunately, Tisdale had locked his cell door from the inside. So when they go to get him to put the fire out, he had locked the door and they couldn't get in. They took an axe and used an axe to beat the door down, to beat the cell door down with an axe and get in there. They pulled him out of the fire. They dragged the guy out of the fire, Tisdale, but not until after all of his clothes were burned off and the man was practically burned alive. He jerks loose from him and runs out the door into the snow. It was a cold, snowy night. Now this guy, he's burned his clothes off. He's naked and burned severely. This guy, he jerks loose, wild and dangerous, like they said. He jerks loose from him, and he runs off, like I said, he runs off into the snowy night, right? They found the guy later, but he was burned so badly that he died 2 days later. At the time of the fire, there were 14 other residents living at this facility besides Tisdale. So once again, they were farmed out to the county residents until a new building could be built. This time, it was 2 separate buildings, each with 5 rooms. The 2 buildings allowed for, you know, you could separate the male and female residents. So, you know, that was a little bit better. They liked that better. Unfortunately, both of those buildings were also destroyed by fire. Imagine that. You put crazy people in a building, and guess what happens to it? It gets burned down. The last building that they put up for the inmates was a 2.5-story brick building with several outbuildings. They built that one in 1906. Now, these buildings were eventually sold by the county on September of 1920. They did a report about it, and a report described it as a modern 2-story brick building. The report said, check this out, now you'll like this. The report said that it contains 130 acres of poor land. That's what you're looking at. It says they had 10 cattle, 8 cows, 3 horses, 45 pigs, and a whole bunch of chickens. It said there's a good garden. There's also an orchard with fruit trees. The products they grow are used in the institution. The farm buildings are fenced are good, and the yards are neatly kept. At the time that this place was in operation, the superintendent of the poor farm, he was paid $500. And his wife, who served as a matron, they gave her a salary of $150. Now, they kept a local doctor, you know, just a local physician. They kept him on call by the county. He was on call 7 days a week, 365, doesn't matter, whatever. But he took care of all of the inmates' medical needs. So they had all of that stuff taken care of too. Now, a lot of these poorhouses, I guess it's about like anything else, you know, that people get involved in. You can take something that is meant to be a good thing with all of the greatest intentions in the world, and all it takes is one bad person to ruin it. You know, one bad person who wants to take advantage of someone because of their financial situation, because of the color of their skin, whatever the situation may be. You know, they're bad people. That's kind of why they're called bad people. You know, you get it. But anyway, so most of these poor farms, there was good and bad. You know, that there's a lot of stories where we've read where people, they love these things because they would give you a chance to get back on your feet again. You see, these days, when something happens, you know, some financial situation, whatever the case may be, the state, they'll give you HUD, they'll give you food stamps, they'll do this, they'll do that, you know, to help you out. Back in the day, it was a totally different thing. They didn't do that. They wanted to give you a job. They wanted you to earn your own way, to make your own way through life. So a lot of times, you know, like I said, now a lot of these were abused, but the intentions were good. So these people, these employers, you know, they would hire these people from the poor farm, and the ones that, if you did a fairly decent job, you know, you worked well, that sort of thing, they would hire you and, you know, hire you on a permanent basis. So you were now out of the poor farm and you lived there just until you got back on your feet again. But, you know, there's always the case where, you know, like I said, people took advantage of things. And, you know, that you, like I said, you have that these days, just as easy as you do back then. But anyhow, when the board of the Board of Charities inspected this poor farm in 1920, they said that it had 3 men, 13 women, and a 1-year-old boy who was feeble-minded, they said. You see, inmates, what they would do is they would put in an application with the township overseer of the poor to get a spot here, right, to be admitted. And he got to choose who got in and who didn't. He was the one who chose. But in 1897, the county paid $1 a week to Samuel Fettinger. He was the superintendent of this place. Now, how cool is that? $1 a week is what the superintendent got. Many of the inmates, though, now not necessarily the ones who were able to work and willing to work and, you know, didn't have mental issues or physical issues or something along those lines. Most of the rest of the inmates, they lived here for the rest of their lives. There's actually several claims in Pike County records for their burials because, you know, obviously they can't afford a place to live, they can't afford food, they probably can't afford a funeral either. But anyhow, we found several. There's several claims in the Pike County records for burials. For instance, in 1895, $14.35 was paid to Fred Smith for the burial of Mr. Butler. Fred Crooks died at the farm in 1904. He was buried by Harris and Cone for $18. In 1895, a claim was processed for the burial of W.M. Burton's daughter. It was listed as a 1 4-foot coffin, $5, 1 rough box, $2, 1 burial suit, $2, and hauling to the graveyard, $1.50. There was a whole bunch of other claims. But anyway, we'll be heading in a little while. We are going to be headed to the long lost graveyard. That's right. You see, the poor farm, they had their own graveyard as well. Now, this place has been lost for decades. It's Google Earth. You are looking for a teeny tiny little speck of leveled out spot on a hillside. We're pretty sure we found it. Most locals don't even know that it's there. As far as we know, this place has never been videoed. You guys will be the first to see this place. Now, how cool is that? The Poor Farm records, now they list only known burials. When the cemetery was moved in 1979, there were no stones left in the cemetery, which is located here. Move the bodies to the new graveyard, and we'll be heading down there in a little while. Now, as far as we know, there are no bodies left here on the Pike Central High School grounds, as far as we know. Now, if you've watched any of our other videos at these old graveyards, then you know perfectly well that probably half, if not more, are unmarked graves. Now, this ground here has obviously been refinished when they built the school and, you know, the whole facility. It's a great big facility here. Like I said, you know, you can see just the parking lot is pretty big. Just the parking lot is pretty big. My question, what would you say the odds are that they actually found all of the bodies? I'm going with 0. You see, the article, it clearly says that they moved the ones with headstones. I will bet you $50 right now that there are graves underneath that very building right now. Somewhere in this area that you're looking at right now, there are unknown graves underneath this stuff. Now, we're going to be heading here in a minute. There's a really, really cool place here that I want to show you. It's on the way, and you can see approximately where this old cemetery was. Now, I want to bring you up there, and I want to show you that for a reason. I want you to see just how far back in the woods, how far back in the middle of nowhere this cemetery really was. And it's a spectacular view. It's really pretty. You'll like it. But anyway, I guess if everybody's ready, I just wanted to give you a little bit of the back history right here at the actual site. And like I said, nobody knows about this place. Okay, now this is Bob Amos Park in Pikeville town. The town of Pikeville is right down the hill right here. You turn right at the bottom of the hill. Can't miss it. Now this is a recreational area. As you can see, there's a track right there for horses, basketball court, pickleball court. There's a zip line, a YMCA, there's a big football field right over here. And you can see all kinds of, there's a little playground and little picnic shelters. And there's a horse stable right there. I'm gonna go in there in just a minute just to see what the horses look like. There's a really beautiful ones up here last time I was up here. But anyhow, why are we here? Why did we stop at a park? You know, this is a recreational area, right? Well, we're here for that little mountain right there. You see that mountain directly across from the valley? There was a poor farm there. It was called the Cedar Poor Farm. It's called Cedar Poor Farm Ridge, right there. Now, most people, they wouldn't even know that because it's not even, you know, it's marked, but sort of, and it's off the beaten trail because there's, as far as I know, there's no road that goes up to it now. It's all overgrown many years ago. But that's the actual spot right there. Now, we're going to head on out. I'm going to, like I said, I want to stop by the stables just for a second just to check out the horses. Last time we was up here, they had this huge Clydesdale. I mean, that thing was absolutely spectacular. And now this is the stables. I don't know if they'll have it open or not. I know during Halloween they do a big Halloween thing up here and have the mountainside all decked out, and you can rent horses here. It's called H&M Stables, and you can either stable your horses here or you can rent horses and ride them. There's a trail that goes way back up around the mountain right there that you can rent horses and ride the horses up in there and check out the pretty view. Where we're going, I don't see anybody here, and I'm not gonna, you know, I don't want to interrupt them for working, whatever. Maybe next time. Sorry guys, no Clydesdale today. Now, this is the old Cornerstone Church in Pikeville, Kentucky. We're just barely inside town, just a little tiny bit. If we're right, If Heather and I are right, the graveyard that we're looking for is right back there. We'll find out in a minute, won't we? Okay, I made it, sort of. We are in a little subdivision in the town of Pikeville, Kentucky. Excuse me, I'm out of breath. I had to park down the street. There was nowhere to park, and I didn't want to park in somebody's driveway. So I had to park down the road and walk up. The old Poor Farm Cemetery is right up this hill. And it is most certainly not on YouTube. So this will be an exclusive. This will be a very first time that this spot has ever been shown. So I guess nothing to do but get into the briars. Look at that one. Oh, thorny little dudes. The only way to do it, guys, jump in there and start climbing the mountain. Wish me luck. I'll see y'all in a minute. I'm going in. Ouch. 3 steps. Ow. 4 steps. Okay, I think I'm through the thorniest stuff. And get into mountain goat gear and go, right? And kick it into high gear. Got a mountain to climb. Okay, I'm tired. Still going. Looks like might have been a wide spot right here, possibly for wagons to bring corpses, bring bodies, coffins. It's gonna be a tough one. It looks like it's up the hill from here. Okay, I'm gonna turn the camera off. I might need both hands to do some climbing here. I'm gonna set the camera off for a minute. Well, guys, this has been a brutal climb. I am totally out of breath. I've only came up a few hundred feet, maybe 200 or 300 feet, but it has been straight up every step of the way. Thorns and brush and trees, every inch. It is completely overgrown up here. But guess what? I found it. Sorry, give me just a second. I'm wore out. I took a wrong turn right there and went up the steep side. And I was joking about hitting 4-wheel drive, but I was actually on all fours going up through there. I was on hands and knees. It's steep, steep stuff. And I get up about right in there somewhere and happened to glance around and saw one of these markers over here. I found it. It's not lost anymore. These people here, at a time when all of the country was extremely poor, these were the poorest of the poor. These people most of them through no fault of their own, wound up in probably the worst situation you can possibly imagine what life was like. You know, they say, I was looking at some of these, just kind of glancing a little bit, and I noticed right here, most of these, the ones I saw from here, they say unmarked, they say unknown. I saw 2 stones right there that have a name on them, and a whole bunch of these little metal plaques like that. Now, I've read several times, they say that we die twice. Once when our body dies and our physical form dies. They also die, say the final death is when your name is said for the last time, when your memory dies. Frank Harvath, from 1888 to 1955. His memory is now enshrined in YouTube. As long as our country exists, as long as YouTube exists, Frank's memory is now preserved. And we've shown you a lot of old and neglected cemeteries, but this one's different. This one's unique. These are the residents of the Poor Farm. There was 4 graveyards that were consolidated here, including the one at the Pike Central High School. These were the graves that had headstones. The ones that were unmarked or had no names, no headstones, they're still there. They're under the school. If you look around, they're just strewn. These plates are just strewn. Look at that one. The death. I see a 1906. We'll look around and see what else we can find. That right there, a single stone, is the only thing. The rest of them, unknown. This is one of the most depressing cemeteries I've ever seen. Stuff like this, it really puts the world and your life into perspective. Here's one with a name. It says Quentin Farmer. There's no birth date, there's no death date, just the name. Unknown. Unknown. There's a simple stone to mark someone's loved one. And they're hidden, lost to time, in the middle of nowhere. Another unknown. This is easily the most depressing cemetery I've ever seen. These people deserve our respect. They deserve better. Now this right here is Mountain View Memory Gardens. This is where I stopped the other day for Garnett's video. He's right back there, as a matter of fact, center of your screen. The graveyard here doesn't really have anything to do with our video today. You know, thought it would be, it's a pretty spot. You know, it would be a good spot for sort of a final thoughts kind of thing. You know, I've thought about it all the drive home. You know, give it a chance to kind of settle in, to sink in. You know, everything I've seen today. And it occurs to me, quite frankly, YouTube and you guys, our viewers, subscribers, you know, members, you guys have given us a platform to do stuff. Now you can get on YouTube and you can do videos, you can do all sorts of stuff, you know, game cheats, all sorts of things. But you can also use it to do great things. And that's what Heather and I want to do. You see, to a lot of people, this is, you know, silly, it's dumb, these people already lived, that sort of thing. A lot of people view things that way. And it occurs to me, people like George Washington, Devil Anse Hatfields, all of these famous historical characters, their history is preserved. Their history has gone on after their death, and it will continue to go on. George Washington, Devil Anse Hatfield, to just to name a few. These normal people like Garnett right over here, and the story that I just told you today, those stories are just as important. Those stories are every bit as important as any historical figure you can think of. And now their story is over. But through YouTube and with the support of you guys, we can enshrine some of these memories. All of that will be preserved. Just like Garnett. Like the video we did the other day, last week. Just like Garnett. It's amazing. You can use a hammer to build a house, or you can use a hammer to beat someone to death. YouTube is the same way. Thank you guys for watching. We very much appreciate you. Just know that we do appreciate everything that you do, every comment you've made, all of the wonderful things you've said, the support you've given us. We appreciate you guys. I mean, we've had some We've had some pretty wild stuff too, some stuff that I didn't even see coming. And you know, you just ban them. That's all you can do. You know, ban them and go on. And you know, try to concentrate on what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and the things that you're trying to preserve. Just like Garnet.